community of 35,000 that you mentioned at the beginning of our discussion, and the community in Africa that you're building. What is that like? What is it doing?
Yeah, so the open source community Africa started. Yeah, I always start things when I'm confused or frustrated, which is always has been a pattern. But yeah, it was it's kind of the same actually. I This is interesting. I was at Google Sum of Code Mentor Summit 2017, I think. Um, and I was like, oh, it's happening here. I mean, I know like there was a couple of folks that were supposed to come to the Mentor Summit, from Africa and some other part of the world. And I came, was like, oh, okay. And then I was talking to the OSPO team then at Google. Met Chris Dibona from OSPO side. And so a couple other folks then. I was like, hey, um, you know, I mean, Google has a lot of like GDGs going on. Like, it doesn't look like they talk a lot about open source. It's ironic because Google talk about open source all the time. So what's happening over here? So that conversation started. Initially, I was pitching the idea to Google as something I wanted them to hire me on. I mean, it was heading to some direction, and then got to a point where I just like, you know what? I think it makes sense to do this myself. So I co-founded the Oscar community with a friend, Ada Onduka. She's based in Lagos. We started unofficially in 2017. The goal was just to focus on education. I had experience already with open source. I've been working with some foundations. There were people that were wanting to run meetups, like, for example, like the GitHub Foundation, the Fedora community, the Sugarloaf community, like, name it, a lot. So it was like supposed to be a bridge to get more users beyond the US to get people in. It was kind of the structure. So that started. There were like a couple events that would be based on that, and we started expanding from different cities in Nigeria to even out of Nigeria at some point. It was like 60 something cities across Africa,
Hmm.
and that community started growing and started doing smaller events and started doing programs. And then I was like, oh, like we need to have like an event, like our own kind of like all things open slash FOSDEM slash open source summit, kind of a 3-in-1 vibe, if that makes sense. So we created a conference called the Open Source Festival, and it was started in 2020, just right before COVID. Very interesting. So we did the first one. We hosted around 840, 900 people. Got some support from Google. Google sponsored, Microsoft sponsored, literally everyone with OSPO that was within my radar was supportive. It was great. We had like the OSPO team sent some folks down over to Nigeria. It was pretty cool. It was really awesome. A lot of people loved it. In fact, it was kind of one of the conference that, in my opinion, I saw a lot of people started getting remote jobs because companies, for the first time, normally it's like you going traveling all the way from Nigeria and going to this conference and meeting these people and potentially talking about opportunity. But it was the other way around. They had to fly down to you to see who you are and get to talk to you. So I think that experience kind of opened the eye of some companies, and they started hiring. Even Google hired some folks in Nigeria, and there were like a couple of people that they hired. It started really well. COVID happened, and then we started growing, and it became thousands of thousands. In fact, the last event we did was last year in June, with like 30,000 people in person. It was pretty interesting. We skipped this year. We're going to do one next year. We're hoping around 3,000 to 5,000 people, hopefully, if we get funding. But yeah, it's always typically spread across, your traditional, like I said, it's a bridge between like the open source summit, FOSDEM, and like all things open kind of vibe all together. So a bridge between multiple tracks, down from like blockchain down to like web and mobile. The talks run simultaneously, so you get to pick and choose who you want to listen to. You don't get forced into a talk. which is great. I always love that because not every time I want to hear how to write an app in JavaScript. Like not all the time I want to be hearing that. So like I love my flexibility. So those are the things I brought up. So in general, like it's been there. And now, like I use Oscar as a way to work with companies to be more intentional about some things. So great relationship, especially with the likes of GitHub, likes of Google, likes of Microsoft. Pretty great relationship. And then of course like governmental bodies and the rest. Yeah.
Where is the event held, or where has it been held?
The festival always has been in Lagos, Nigeria. Next year, maybe in Lagos, somewhere else. We're not quite sure yet, but the chance is still going to be in Lagos or in a different city in Nigeria. So, but in
And time of year, is it always in January, February?
no June, yeah June, yeah June. It's going to be in June this year. I think second week or so.
If someone got interested to learn more about the event and maybe sponsor it, do you have an event website where people can go, or should they reach out to you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me. I mean, the event website is festival dot OSCA, then Africa. So basically, you're doing like OSC Africa as a word together .org, and then that takes you straight to the festival. So right now, I think you just probably go great with a landing page of for potential dates with it. Become a sponsor, become a speaker. So we typically get like very diverse crowd across the world. I would get like speakers across the globe. Same thing with attendees. So pretty neat.